The essence of spirituality and the reason it's connected to personal dignity is to be able to move through the world with the highest level of integrity. The authentic self completely intact, uninfluenced or distorted. Responding from the true self, whatever the situation. That requires a fortifying of my core and a melting of all that is not me. It requires going inside. Not to stay on the surface. That place of roles and responsibilities, labels, the feeling of going very deep inside, a place that is untouched by all that's been experienced as I move through time. A very sacred and pure part of the self. A place where I feel most real. There's few thoughts in that place. So little to think about. All of my focus is on being very aware of the self. I, the being, and experiencing my true nature. I, the being of peace. This is like spiritual exercise. The more time I spend here, the more deeply I experience my true nature, such that it imprints on me. the more that core is fortified. And if I can also immerse myself in what is true, eternal, that will help to melt the bits that are not me. Fortifying the core and melting away what is not me. This builds integrity of self, the essence of spirituality. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. Good evening and welcome to Interview with the Raj Yogi. And tonight's topic is inner stability in a changing world. I find this topic very interesting because in a physical sense, I don't know what your experience is like in terms of fitness, but when you say stable, I think it's, if I recall you sharing that oftentimes individuals just gird down. But, just some sort of physical inner force. But even in spirituality, in terms of being stable, there's some sort of internal violence. And this relationship with what is real stability seems to be sort of a deadening or a stifling or a suppressing. But I find it really significant when you mention in physical fitness, that's actually not really a sign of strength whatsoever. But perhaps maybe we'll just look at that in terms of a physical thing before we can look at the spiritual aspects, because I find that there's a link between the two. In the physical, there's sort of two things that go together to be able to maintain, I suppose, integrity of movement. And they are stability and mobility. So that's the foundation of healthy movement, is not one or the other, but both together, stability and mobility. So if I just have mobility and not stability, which is the strength piece, I have lots of flexibility. Some even have hypermobility, but I don't have the stability. I've got one client who's in this boat and incredibly prone to injury. They can really send joints all over the place and certainly prone to injury. So, and then if I have lots of stability, lots of strength, but it's rigid, it can't respond to, shifts, even just to movement. It can't move. So I'm sort of stuck. Everything's great as long as I don't move. Then clearly that also could lead to injury. So I ideally want to have that stability, but I want it to be fluid as well, able to respond and to be integrated into movement. So the ideal is mobility and stability, which leads to something called grace. I know that topic is very meaningful to you. But I find it really interesting then when I know it's a physical thing, but we say there's strength, but there's rigidity. Then what do we define as strength? Because shouldn't strength mean you're strong, or is it implying that a definition of strong, again, in a physical way, we also have perhaps maybe limited or superficial ideas? I've been doing an experiment lately. And again, it's not to pit one thing against another, but just to explore some of our attitudes and ideas, and are they actually accurate? And so there is, in physical, when you say strength, I think what comes to everyone's mind is lifting these really heavy weights, Olympic lifting. But I tend to do a lot of body weight work. So there's no, other than the body weight, there's no external additional strength and weight involved. And I've noticed that people kind of find it more difficult. It definitely builds one's strength, but they find it more challenging. And so the capacity just to have mastery over the body versus sort of throwing around external weights definitely maps onto our spiritual ideas of strength or power. we spiritually think strength or power is the capacity to control external things, we literally say throw that weight around. Whereas just to have mastery over my own conduct is such a higher level of, it's easier actually to sort of work on those physical weights, if you will, but to have that incredible control or mastery over my own, whether it's body or over my own character. So I was sharing with someone today, again, this story of Jackie Robinson and this apparently famous conversation that occurred between him and the one recruiting him, Ricky Branch, in which Branch was very aware that what Jackie Robinson would encounter as the first Afro-American in the century coming into Major League Baseball, he knew what he would encounter. And even though Jackie was not the best baseball player to recruit, he felt he had the strongest character to manage or pioneer the situation. So this famous conversation in which Branch is explaining to Jackie Robinson the lay of the land and how he hopes he will respond to what inevitably will be thrown at him. And Jackie's confused and says, wait a minute, are you saying that you want someone who's not strong enough to fight back? And Branch says, no, I want someone who's strong enough not to fight back. It's a very famous conversation. The idea being that it takes greater strength to control my character, to maintain that integrity of character in quite challenging situations. It's easy to throw it around and, sort of demonstrate one's force on things out there, but to be able to maintain the grace of the self is the ultimate strength.
I'm not sure what your experience has been, but just when you're sharing reminds me there's a connection with this capacity of tolerance or inner endurance. And I've been really finding that capacity very meaningful lately, perhaps a lot of relearning as well. We have had actually extended topics on extended conversations on this topic a couple of years ago about what is spiritual endurance. But, just discovering inside that, there has to be such a sense of value inside and fulfillment. So it seems it's very connected to what you're talking about, being strong enough to actually respond with dignity. And I suppose when we think of physical strength, just even what you were sharing about just being able to have such mastery of your body, and in the situation of Jackie Robinson as an example, to have such mastery of how you are responding inside. Maybe for some, they can't even fathom what that actually looks like. What is required inside, because we kind of go to this girding, I'm just trying to be patient, try not to say something, but there must be a much, much different feeling, at least I have discovered inside, of what that is.
Obviously, one of the foundation principles, some might say assumptions of Raj Yoga, is that we all intrinsically have these capacities, so they're there. So a huge part of it is sort of not to go for the quick fix or the surface level, to be patient and build up that resilience or nurture, you sort of illuminate that quality within. I think in many ways we sometimes just sort of go for the quick fix or the sort of more surface demonstration of these things. So I was laughing today because I was in a class and it was a very simple exercise that involved rotation through the core. And the instructor was saying, okay, some of you are just moving your eyeballs. So that it was just the rotation through the eyeballs. There was actually no rotation through the oblique. It was just moving their eyeball. But I think in their mind, they thought they were doing it. Right? So the muscles are there. I mean, they're there to be developed, but I have to sort of not deceive myself and dial it back so I get to actually do the real thing. So that, I think, can happen. I sort of revert to a quick fix or what I think it's supposed to be. But to a detached observer, it's pretty obvious it's not the thing. So sometimes I think we're just moving our eyeball rather than doing that deeper work that takes a little more time and probably won't look great at first, but the capacity is there.
So this relates to this topic of this inner stability. I was reflecting on what the name of this topic would be that would feel meaningful to souls. But I was thinking about the relationship with truth, the relationship with silence, the relationship with the self, relationship with God. It would have to be like a very meaningful living experience to be able to have that kind of inner stability. So I find it interesting when you're talking about this girding down that happens in physicality, because in spirituality, some think about checking out and zoning out, knowing that that's, of course, it's much more meaningful than sorrow, or maybe not meaningful is the word, but it feels better than sorrow. But I was really thinking about what is that inner stability. So for yourself, what has that lived experience been like? In terms of, I'm sure there's many situations, that you've had to have this inner endurance and yet have this grace, that there's dignity in that experience. Maybe not others are feeling it or whatnot, but you can gauge that inside for yourself.
What I've noticed a lot is that the ultimate strength is which is the opposite of our concept of power strength, is to hold tight. The ultimate strength is to let go. And so what actually destabilizes us in various situations and causes a lot of overthinking and reactivity in the mind, which eventually comes out, is snagging on things, being attached. So in a practical way, what I've noticed having to develop these exercises of strength is can I, and this is where truth comes in, because the things that we're attaching to are illusions. And so if I can sort of align with truth, it creates this capacity to let go of those illusions, because the illusions is what destabilizes the soul. This is my thing, or this outcome, or whatever expectations, these things we're snagging on, and they're destabilizing us. So that's the biggest thing I notice. If I find my stability starting to have, a bit of activity inside, it's almost always something I have to let go of. Do I have the strength to let go of it? Have I practiced that sufficiently that there is that strength to let go? And that's definitely the case in movement, is through letting go that the capacities of the body are unlocked.
Do you find that you're practicing letting go at the time when there's enough people, or that you practice enough? And I'm feeling that you're talking about the letting go, feeling that I'm a soul, that to experience I'm not defined by everything. Do you feel it's sort of like this drill, like a fire drill that you're practicing all the time? And then at the time when, that is needed, when you discover, oh, I must be attached to something, there must be some sort of rigidity, that this practice, it enables you the power to perhaps even have a little or a different response.
I really can't think of any physical situation where someone isn't practicing over a period of time. And if they don't do that, they're expecting it to be there at the time it's needed. So they do, and then they sprain something. So injury is certain. So what that means is that situations are actually just providing loyal feedback for what I have been practicing. Has my practice been authentic or genuine, such that I'm really building that strength to let go? Situations will come along, and that is their specialty, is to give me feedback on whether or not I've been building anything.
So what is it that you are letting go? Is it, when you say you're practicing, is it just thoughts you have thinking, letting go of thoughts, or is it that actual practice of experiencing I'm a soul? That when you are practicing that again and again, very naturally, there's old ideas you have all under that umbrella that you can naturally let go of those ideas and concepts.
Yes, I think we've talked about this before, that to just say let go is rather annoying. So what I'm doing is, if I want to let go of illusion, then I need to embrace truth. So I'm actually focusing on experiencing the truth and seeing, again, if I am genuinely experiencing the truth, there would be letting go. And this is actually where things really fall apart. Because again, a bit of deceiving ourselves. It's yes, no, I'm doing it. I'm so conscious I'm doing it, but there isn't the proof in terms of that detachment. Again, that I'm not snagging on things and situations. So I don't focus directly on detachment. It's an automatic outcome of embracing the truth. And then situations will give me feedback as to whether or not I've embraced the truth, by whether or not there is that detachment.
So I know we're running out of time. Such a, I don't know, it's a deep topic, right? Not to be esoteric, but what has your experience been like in terms of experiencing yourself of who we are, but then God as a living being? Because it feels like it is, at least for me, I've been reflecting a lot today, that was the morning topic in class, but whatever we connect to, whatever relate to, really affects our sense of self. And we've been connecting and relating to a lot of inanimate things. And it's a sensitive topic in terms of, connecting to the ocean, to the mountains and so forth. But how do you feel that kind of experience that many find very meaningful, how does that relate to me as a living being?
I think the main thing that seemed to come out in the lesson was this idea of being able to relate to, have relationship, connect to an incorporeal being. So we tend to physicalize spirituality so I can connect. But the moment I do that, I've weakened it. It's not going, so it was saying, you can do this, but you're not going to get the results. So I have to develop, I suppose, the strength, the capacity to be able to not just connect, but actually have a relationship with incorporeal, which is an ironic kind of conversation because I am incorporeal. So it really suggests how disconnected I became from myself. But to have this and not physicalize that being in order to connect. So because then the strength isn't going to, the power, as it was saying, that power purity won't happen. So I need to develop. And of course, the only way is I have to get on the same wavelength. Then I can have a relationship. So I can always relate to someone I feel a belonging or a similarity or a connection to. So that's really the crux of the issue, is can I have a relationship with an incorporeal being? Then I receive strength.
I will sneak in one last question, because what you're sharing reminds me about our relationship with silence. And many souls hear the word silence and it sounds like, oh, it sounds boring, or sounds dead, or sounds like, what, you don't want me to talk, you don't want me to think. And what has your experience been like, that silence is actually a very rich, it's living, it's alive? And how is that connected to truth?
Yes, definitely. I have to become comfortable with silence. That's where the incorporeal resides. So I find silence is so many different things, very rich, but it's also, sometimes I compare it to, I remember when I would go swimming and I have corrective, I need things to correct my vision, glasses or contacts. But when I would go into the pool, I didn't wear anything. And I remember the first one saying, oh my gosh, I can see, I'm cured. No, I'm not. So this concept of refraction, and the deeper you go, then the better that that the more that refract. So the clarity and the just the truth, the ease of being able to see. When I say see, I don't mean visually, I mean to experience and understand the truth is so profound in silence. So it's super important to be able to, experience that truth. It's going to naturally help me detach from illusion. I need to develop. So reflecting on what is eternal will take me into truth. And this, of course, will come back to our conversation of if it's my time to do so.
Oh, that famous timing. But it's very true. So we'll have a little reflection.
As I go through the day, there's a swarm of activities going on. So much physical stimuli around me, so many different tasks to perform, the constant ticking of time. There is a lot circling around me, and sometimes it feels inside me. So many thoughts, so many feelings. But if I can go a little deeper inside, that level of activity starts to reduce. Things start to simplify. And my objective is to arrive at a place that feels like the eye of a storm, where just I, the being, can be experienced. The eternal nature stage of the self, deeply calm, observing everything circling around from this very calm and silent place. I am a point of truth, completely stable, observing everything. And eventually, just the power of my stage starts to change everything. Not through the force of desires, but that power of silence and stability naturally moves everything in a beneficial direction. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. So just a warm reminder, I believe it's a Raj Yoga Foundations course of Lights in Hindi starting tomorrow. So it's the first 4 Wednesdays. If there's 5 Wednesdays, it's the first 4 Wednesdays of the month, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. And of course, we have our English workshops at the Inner Peace Center on the first Saturdays of the month. We are updating the website, drop-in sessions on site at Inner Peace Center, as well as the Academy. Those are all posted on the website. And of course, many online drop-in sessions as well. So feel free to visit the website or go to Eventbrite and type in BK Calgary, and you'll find all of these sessions. Thank you for joining with us this evening. Om Shanti.